Yeah, good evening once again. Welcome to the Roundtable Talk. We're considering the morale or the morass of an ambitious woman. Just to For those that are joining us for the very first time, the Roundtable Talk is an experience sharing platform where we bring in friends, uh, people of influence, and people that have capacity to just share from their experience so that others can learn. We started this in December 2020, where we talked about repositioning for 2021. And the next 2.0, we talked about the paradox of choice. And 2 weeks ago, we talked about the morale or the morass of an ambitious woman. We could not finish that session. It was very, very interesting and exciting. So we decided to conclude today. So we have a couple of persons that will be speaking to us this evening, and I believe sincerely that they have a lot to share. They have a lot to share. I just want you to grab your pen, grab a piece of paper, and if you have anything to say, if you have any contribution, drop it in the chat box. We will definitely pick your questions today. We could not take questions last week, 2 weeks ago, but this week we'll be taking questions. Just to reiterate, last 2 weeks, we had 3 persons speak to us on this topic. We had Dr. Vera, we had Farida, and we had Philomena, and they had interesting points. They had very, very interesting points. Basically, we came up with 2 questions at the end of that session. We came up with 2 questions. And the questions were, because during the course of our conversation, 2 things were very, very notable. Some of the panelists talked about passive emotional abuse. And as the conversation went on, it popped up that yes, in this age and time where the economy is getting difficult, inflation is about 18.7%. It is not okay for the burden of the family to be on just one person. Everybody has to work. Yes, that is the situation we find ourselves today. So when you have 2 ambitious persons in a relationship, how do you balance things out? So the conversation from 2 weeks ago took us to that point, and today we will be answering those questions. The first question will be, how do I deal with passive emotional abuse? Because that came up clearly, that some men do not support their wives, and somehow some form of emotional abuse ensues when that happens. And we'll also try to deal with the question, how can two ambitious partners coexist in a relationship? I have my visions and dreams, you have your visions, and how do we balance things out? We'll be hearing from Keyo this evening, we'll be hearing from Lola, we'll be hearing from Atinuke, we'll be hearing from Faith. So we have a lot of persons in the house that we'll be hearing from this evening. And once I mention your name, go straight to the point so that we can take questions. I really love us to take questions today. I'd like us to take questions today. So we'll just we'll go ahead quickly without much ado, and we'll be calling on our first speaker. But before I do that, I just want to reiterate some of the things that was said last 2 weeks. Now, from what we could gather, we understood that when you have an ambitious woman, if you have a partner that is not supportive, what you can do is you learn to support yourself. That came out clearly. Know what you're doing, journal your wins, build solid relationships or support system, make your husband relevant, and be mentally and financially free. That came out clearly from our panelists 2 weeks ago. So we'll take it further this evening while we call on Keyo to share her what she thinks about how to deal with passive emotional abuse and how to balance a relationship when 2 partners are ambitious. Keyo, are you with me this evening? Before she comes up, Okay, so can you hear me? If you can hear me, just type 111 in the chat box. If you can hear me, quickly type 111 in the chat box. Let me be sure somebody's giving a feedback that they can't hear me. If you can hear me, just be sure that, okay, great. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So if you can't hear me, maybe it's from your end, not from this end. All right, great. Just before I call on our first speaker, I just want to quickly appreciate a lot of persons that are on this call. Gospel, you're welcome. Atiduke, thank you very much for joining. Basi, Cynthia, Emmanuel, Eustace, Faith, thank you for joining. Thank you very, very much for joining. We have from some friends from Cameroon. Mispa, I believe you're on the call. I saw, okay, I can't pick the name now, but I know a lot of persons from Cameroon will be joining us this evening. All right, Kerry, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Please, can everybody hear me? Do you know?
Yeah, I think we can all hear you.
Okay, great. Okay, which one should I take first? Okay, how to ambitious partner can succeed. Okay. Okay. Disclaimer: I'm actually not a professional in this, but I'll be talking based on my personal experiences and what I've seen other people do better. To be honest. Okay, great. So first of all, I'll be looking at how to ambitious partner can succeed in a marriage. I think when you're looking at that, the first thing you need to realize or you want to, assess is what is driving your purpose? What's driving you to want to be successful, really? To want to, go to the peak of your career. Is it money? Are you driven by the need to feed, to feel a need in your community? Is it self-satisfaction or what? And if that's the case, you need to then align that with what I call the wager system. The wager system, what I mean is the family unit, the marriage, and then your career is in the middle.
Okay.
Because of course the two of you are married and you probably have a family, like in terms of kids. But if you don't, you have people like your extended family, you have your cousins, you have people that you want to call a family unit. So you need to compare what is the value of this career to this two people, to these two systems, like what I call the wedge system. Before we go there, you often hear a woman can't have it all. I've heard people say that a lot, which connote that she can either have one, a successful home or an unsuccessful career, or she can have an unsuccessful career or a successful home. And I remember asking someone, someone said that, and I said something, how about the Ngozuela? And she said, oh, that her mom had to, I don't know how true this is actually though, that her mom had to resign from her work to come into Ngozi's home, to manage Ngozi's home. That was only why Ngozi was able to succeed career-wise. But that begs the question, does that mean that non-career driven couples have successful home? Or does that mean a one career driven couple, like one is career driven, the other isn't, does that mean that they make successful home? I think your answer is as good as mine. I think this all boils down to intentional planning, very intentional planning, which I think can be easier for more career-oriented people than non-career-oriented people. Because if you're a career-oriented person, then you're used to planning, setting timelines, and doing stuff. Now let's go to the wedge system, because I think that's, for me, is the best way that two career-oriented people can succeed. Now, what value are you adding in your career? What value is your career adding to the family unit? And what value is your career adding to your marriage? You need to weigh that. Otherwise, you might be putting one thing in front of the other. And this is me just not saying, none of them is bad, but your marriage and your family unit is what gives your wages system, is what supports the career basis. And it's good to be career driven. It's good to do all that. But it's even better if you have a good support system. And how do you do that? I asked a few questions when I was doing this. So what sacrifices needs to be made and when? I am career driven, he is career driven. What step does he need to make in his career and when? How can I complement that? When is it that he needs to go for a course and I need to take a back seat? Or when is it that I need to go for a course and he needs to take a back seat? These are things that me and him needs to sit down and discuss and agree on. The other thing I ask is, when is the least neglect? When can the least neglect be executed to get the most unfavorable outcome? If two of us need to do the same thing at the same time, how can we do it better? Can we, get our mom into the house to look after the kids? Can a maid do it better at this point? But the two people need to always come together and talk about how two of us can go ahead. Always prioritizing the fact that we need the two of us for this to work. Always prioritizing that we are a team.
Yeah.
How can the family system be better managed? Is a home manager at this point better so that two of us can go ahead and get what we want to do? How can the marriage be better managed? Can we set goals and timelines and be accountable? Is it when your career is kicking off or when you sense your career is kicking off, but it was actually the agreed time that your spouse needs to, you know, go on that course? Therefore, you retreat on what you guys had agreed on. That doesn't show integrity, and integrity is key because I remember the question said partners, and we have to, is that when you as a guy comes in and say, you have to be submissive, I'm the one that have to do this, then leave your partner bitter. So we need to set goal timelines and be accountable and show integrity to when our time is up and the other person needs to take it up. I think very important is a shared benefit of career progression and outcome with spouse. As you climb through your career, what are the shared benefits? When you move from one step to the other and you progress monetarily, did your family actually feel that? Was your spouse also in control of some of the things that happened career wise? Was he invited to meetings, that social meetings in your offices? Were you able to share some of those things to make him or her feel relevant? I think those also are important. But also, as a mother of three kids, I think this is important. Make room for emergency situations and keep and step back when situation calls for it. Find your career is heading and you're doing very good and you're doing very well, but there could be an emergency situation that needs you to take a step back. Is it realistic for you to do that or not? Is it realistic to do that? That's why I asked at the beginning, what's the purpose? Why are we doing what we're doing? Why is this career so important? Is it that important that you need to sacrifice, you know, the things like the wages system? If it is, then, that's fine. But if it isn't, always make room for emergency situation that might need you to take a step back from whatever you're pursuing to attend to the emergency situation and then go back. But like I said, for it to work, the wager system needs to come into place. The husband, the marriage, sorry, the children, and your career. When those two are set in place, then the career can, progress very well. But in situation where that isn't set in place, you will struggle. You might still be successful, but you will struggle. I think that takes me to the next one: how to deal with passive emotional abuse. This is a topic I'm actually very familiar with, not with a partner though, but with friends. I've
Okay.
had few friends that had exhibited all this. I think the thing with yeah, I have a lot. If I have a few friends, like I can always see it when it comes. And passive emotional abuse is one of those things that, if it happens, if you have someone that do it, it's it's always a manipulative thing because they are always very in control. They are always logical. And if you're not careful, you become the actively aggressive person in that situation. So, someone make hints, drop hints every now and again, and they just unsettle you. It is sometimes unplanned, but it's actually, it's sometimes they're mostly unaware of what they're doing actually. It's terrible when it is a partner because you have to live with this day in and day out. And I think the ways I wrote down on how to deal with this is you have to first of all acknowledge it's a very tough situation. It's less predictable than an active abuser.
Yeah.
When you're in an argument, someone the person is actively arguing with you and the person hits you or you hit the person, that's it's predictable. You can see that coming. But the thing with the passive abuser is like they just drop hints. You
Mm,
walk right into it. It's like a lineman, you didn't see it and it just blows up.
mm,
And and this might be due to things in their past. It could be deeply rooted. It could just be a dislike for an incident that's constantly happening. But it is definitely a control thing. They seem powerless at what is going on, and they want to have a kick at it. So what I did, I said, I I segregated my answer into two ways. I, do not shy away, address it.
Okay.
Do not shy away, address it. There's something I read. I mean, like I said, I'm a mother of three kids. There are things that are urgent and there are things that are important. Addressing passive aggressive issues is important. It's not necessarily urgent, but it's important, and you need to always address it when it happens. You can say something like, "We have a problem," not "You have a problem." Because what the passive person is trying to do is trying to turn you into the monster in that situation. And like I said, most time they are not aware. It's best to be done when it's not happening. Like you just walking and someone goes, "Do you realize you didn't drive that car very well?" It's not best for you to go, "Why are you always criticizing me?" just in the heat of things. But if you want to do it in the heat of things, then you need to preempt that he or she is about to do that. Then you control the situation. You control it, you're fully aware of the situation in a non-aggressive way. That way you take the power out of the person's hand. Otherwise, it's better to address it out of session. When it isn't happening, everybody's chill. You can bring it up and say, "Please, I need to talk to you about something." And in doing so, you might need to take record of, "You did this, you did this, you did this." Although that shows you also in a bad light, because it might go, "Do you keep record of this thing?" And then you can go, "Not necessarily, but because I wanted to talk to you about it, I decided to just chronicle it for the past few times it happened." Do not shy away from it. Do not be aggressive. Don't raise your voice. Just make sure you say it as calmly as possible, but try to do it when it's not happening.
All right.
Try. That's the best way to address it when it's not happening. It's better to also check out the root causes. Why is your spouse wanting to regain power? Why is your spouse wanting to regain power? Are you sharing the adequate benefits of your career progressions with family and spouse? Does your spouse feel carried along with the things you're doing? Like Mr. Jonas said at the beginning, he said things are getting really tough, and both family, both spouse need to work. Does your spouse feel, he or she's being carried along with, your career progression? Is the family seeing this hard work you're doing? Is it being, translated into adequate sharing of this outcome in your family? Do they feel lost just because you're progressing career wise? So you need to address that. Okay, what can be done better? Does he or she feels like you didn't keep to the timeline of the progression? Because just because I say I'm going to go do my PhD for 3 years and come back, and then my husband will do his PhD, I might come back and not find a job. My husband might come back, find a job. Then I feel bitter about the whole thing. And those are things you need, and it actually does happen. I spoke to a girlfriend of mine last year. We just both found ourselves like I stay at home mom. And sometimes it throws you into a deep, being that you were very good at school, you had a first class, then you're married and you're looking after the kids. Then your husband doesn't get to stay at home. He comes back, he's paying the rent and all that. Sometimes you look at yourself in your mirror and you kind of lose your self-value. And that's where you have to sit down with him and honestly tell him how you feel. And you realize that he actually maybe wasn't thinking about it that way. He actually wasn't even thinking him waking up and driving the car to work was an issue. But this is real issue. Like my girlfriend and I had to talk about this. I think it was her birthday and she turned 32. And she couldn't believe like this first class high flying girl in school was just a stay at home mom. And I told her I went through that too, but I think it's a good thing you need to sit your husband down and talk to him and tell him how you feel. It's not as if he's going to quit his job, but at least he knows you feel underappreciated and looking after the kids and all that. He didn't do anything purposely to put you in that position and you feel bad. But speaking about it might also make him increase that little gesture of, "Oh, I stopped by today, I got you flowers. I
All
stopped
right.
by today, I think So
All
that I
right.
think regular checking is really good. Be very
Great.
vulnerable. Finally,
Okay.
please, that's just the last thing. Be very vulnerable when you're having this conversation. It doesn't make you weak, rather it empowers you. He is
Mm,
your partner, she is your
mm,
partner.
mm,
Be very honest about how you feel about these things,
mm.
but do not shy away from addressing passive aggressions or passive emotional abuse. let the person know. They are often unaware they are doing it. Just let them know, be assertive and set boundaries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Keyo, for that wonderful introduction, or that's a wonderful startup that has set the pace for today's conversation. Just to reiterate what you have said, the first question you have to ask is, what is driving your purpose? Yes, you're ambitious. What is driving it? Is it just for personal gain, or is it for the purpose to advance or enhance your family? Value of your career to the system. What value will your ambition bring to the system? What value is it bringing to the table? Is it personal or is it corporate? Let me permit me to use the word corporate here. Intentional planning when you have two ambitious persons trying to balance things out in a relationship, you just have to be intentional. Then what value? Okay, I've said that before. Then I think the bottom line of what you have said in dealing with passive emotional abuse is communication. Now you must deal with it as it comes, just like she has said. Do not just allow it to slide, but deal with it at the appropriate time. Learn to communicate and communicate appropriately. I think that's just a summary of what she has said. Now I would like to bring up Atinuke. I know she didn't join from the beginning. Atinuke, can you hear me? Please confirm you're on the call.
Oh, yes, I can hear you.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you for joining. Now, we have two questions we are considering this evening. I just want to touch each of them briefly. And the first one is, how do you deal with passive emotional abuse? Now, remember from part one, when we were having this conversation, it came out clearly that partners that don't support their wives, right, there's a possibility that they could be abusing their partners passively, abusing their wives emotionally, but in a passive way, just passive emotional abuse. Then secondly, what we also wanted to talk about briefly is, how can two ambitious partners coexist in a relationship and succeed? So over to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you very much for this opportunity. And I really love what the first speaker said. I think essentially, to have two ambitious partners both succeed, because I think it's very important that each one succeeds. So it's not one over the other, is that they understand that they're on the same team. It's like having Lionel Messi and Ronaldo on the same team, we're not competing with each other. Once they have a base that it's a team thing, and whatever success each one has is to the benefit of the family, that is very important. Another thing in regards to passive aggressiveness is learned helplessness. So the partner, which tends to be the lady in most cases. Now, what tends to happen, I think maybe it's a cultural thing. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but the African culture tends to have this belief that the lady's career or her ambitions need to take a backbone, and she needs to stay at home and take care of the family. And a lot of women have evolved from being that. Now, what I think here is, most times some women try to communicate in the ways they know how best to. Oh, okay, this is how I'm feeling, especially, for example, the example the first speaker gave, a lady who knows her value and knows, what she was like before marriage, her educational status and all that she could bring to the table productively. And now she's married, and she feels that all she's bringing to the table, which isn't little, but to her, she can do more, is, taking care of the kids, cleaning the house, cooking food. And there's nothing wrong with that. But inside of her, she feels that she can bring more. Now, the problem is where a lady like this has tried in the way she can to communicate to her partner. Now, what tends to happen is the partner neither supports nor neglects. That's the passiveness. The passiveness is, oh, I'm not going to support you, but I'm not going to deny you. The truth is, what you have done is not supported the partner. So, for example, I'm not going to stop you from going to search for a job, but I'm not going to push you if I see like you're not having a good day, or I'm not going to push you beyond what I feel. And I think why most partners, as the men in this case would do that, is maybe they don't feel valued or appreciated. Maybe they have done that in the past and they didn't get, the value or the appreciation that they felt they needed. Or it may seem like, okay, like the first speaker mentioned, okay, if you succeed in this career, if you get these goals that you may get, and in some cases, the woman may even be more thriving than the man.
Yeah.
Now, the fear is, okay, if you get all of that, are you bringing it to the home or is just for you? Now, if the man feels that you're just getting, and that goes back to your goal or your vision, if the man feels that whatever you're trying to gain is for your own personal goal, then he's going to just let you be. So like the first speaker said again, I think what the partners need to do is have a come to Jesus, meaning come together and sit down and talk. Now, the thing we need to understand about the conversation is that the first conversation may not yield the result. So it means that, okay, you will have the conversation and let the person know how you're feeling right now. The person may ignore your feelings, but you have said your own part and let it be. Now, you as an individual, if you're the lady, actively do whatever you need to do and seek support within your friends and people that, try and keep a balance, because you don't want, the truth is, once you start getting support outside, your attention starts to shift from your partner to that person.
True.
Because the truth is, you're getting the emotional support that you would have wanted to get from your partner, who's your team member, from another person.
Okay.
Now, you also need to go back to your partner and let that person understand, okay, this is how I'm feeling now. I may be wrong. This is what I'm perceiving. I may be wrong. Am I wrong in this? So let it look like even if you think what you're thinking is right, you can present it in a way that, the person doesn't feel like they're being attacked. And especially, you should also weigh the temperament of the partner. So if it's a very gentle person who will just quietly listen, reassess it and go, then you know how to present it. But if somebody who tends to be a little more aggressive and temperamental, you want to be sure that you're presenting this at a time that the person can accept the information, or get somebody who can indirectly present it. That may not always be the best, but it's definitely an option. If there's somebody that the person looks up to and would easily listen to, you could present it to that person too. Also, you can seek, I wouldn't say advice, but opinion. Am I perceiving this wrong? Is this person just so involved in their own career that they're neglecting me? Now, because the truth is, there's some cases where the man now focuses so much on his career that he neglects the emotional needs of the woman completely. And I don't think that's fair, because if it was the other way, it would be wrong. So he needs to also know that this is not, so the passive aggression now tends to be on the person who is not thriving in their career. Yeah. The most important thing I would suggest is having a conversation and letting the person know that, okay, whatever my goals are, this is a team. No matter what the state of the marriage is, you guys are still together. It's a partnership. It's called a partnership for a reason, meaning that your success is my success and my success is your success. I joke around with some of my friends, say, okay, if you have a PhD, I have a PhD too. It's not your PhD or my PhD, it's our PhD. So if you succeed at something, it comes to me. If I succeed at something, it comes to you. And remember, if I fail at something too, it's still you. True. So it's not me against the foundation, and the vision should be, okay, we're in this marriage. And immediately when you mentioned, when the first speaker mentioned Okonjo-Iweala, the person that I thought of, and this is who I thought of, and I'm just going to be straight up, David and Faith Oyedepo. These two people have thrived in ways that I cannot explain. And what I have noticed is that it's a team. Because fortunately, let's put it this way, they're in the same industry. Let's remove the fact that it's a religious background, but it could be in any other industry, but they are in the same industry, right? Yeah. Good. Now, Faith is also, his wife is also a pastor. She's also an author. So you can say they tend to do the same thing. Like, she has her own personal ministry and she's thriving. So if you notice that brings, and she's not a timid woman, she's very assertive, very strong personality, yet still submissive. So what I think she has been able to do is ensure that, and that comes with grace, that you are able, because the truth is no man is also going to take the fact that you have a successful career and you can't maintain the home. So I think what's very important here is he's not going to say, oh, it's because you're going to work from morning to night that he's not going to come back home and eat. Okay, so why did he marry you? You know, he needs to make sure you as a woman, it's extra for you to have a successful home and a successful career. You have to work twice as hard because you want to succeed at home, not at the expense of your career, and you want to succeed at your career, not at the expense of your home. So you will work. I mean, sometimes you see the sermons, they start at 5:30 a.m. every single day, fully dressed. So I can only imagine what time she woke up and prepared food for her husband and her children, and then continued the whole day. And this is somebody that is extremely busy. So I can imagine what she has to do. The thing is, you can't be a lazy, successful woman in your career and your family. So I just think the foundation and the focus is maybe having a come together, talking about it, grace, working extra hard, and ensuring that no part is suffering at the expense of the other. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Atinuke. It's very, very clear. Communication is key. Communication is key. Talking about it. I think it's in talking about it that we find the balance. How we talk about it as well also matters. Now, if you permit me to just say this at this point, most persons, the reason why, and you can also correct me, not like I'm saying this like an authority in this, but I would say that if you do not define who you are, where you are going to, and have a sense of direction before you go into marriage, I think it kind of makes it a little bit difficult trying to find your way when you're already in marriage. But we'll talk about that some other time. Before we go, just to take it further, I also like to call on Lola just to share her views on this before we begin to take questions. If you have questions, just begin to drop your questions in the chat box so that we begin to take note of it. So Lola, are you there to just take it further where Atinuke stopped?
Hi, Jonah. Yes, I'm here. I don't know if you can hear me.
All right, great. Loud and clear, I can hear you.
Okay. All right. So good evening and good evening, everyone. Thanks for the honor of being invited to this platform. And it's been a good conversation so far. So what I would address is the issue of, we're talking of supportive partnerships. We're also talking about balancing successful career with a successful home life. So which one do you want me to address first?
Whichever one you want to address. Just before you continue, I just want to
whichever one. Okay.
Yes, I think Farida is on this call. Farida, thank you for joining. We'll take you last anyway, so that I just take some other person. So Lola, you can go on.
All right, thank you. So building on the points that the other two speakers have mentioned earlier, there's one area that I'd also like to address, and that's the societal pressures, because believe it or not, we especially as professional women, there are certain expectations that are placed on women as regards professional ambition, and that kind of subconsciously, for the most part, it puts some sort of stop in the kind of ambition a person has. And I use the word subconscious deliberately because nobody goes to school or gets a degree or gets the professional qualifications to deliberately say, oh, we are going to underutilize these qualifications in our careers. But at the end of the day, for a lot of people, especially, and I'm speaking from a personal point of view, based on people I know, for the most part, a lot of people subconsciously dial down their ambitions. And why is that? We've talked extensively about the role of the partners as regards this, so I won't dwell too much on that. What I would rather dwell on is the perception of the women themselves in these positions. Society expects you to be a family person. Society also expects you to be a successful career person, but society expects you as a woman to be more of a family person than a career person. It is what it is. We're not arguing that. So the issue now is, okay, you have this expectation, but you have your personal ambitions. How do you balance the two? There are two approaches to the thing. The first one is what motivational speakers would call self-belief. So this is not aspire to inspire now. This is just saying what the mindset, the role that the mindset has to play in this. And I'll give you some practical examples. Now, the first one is, okay, so there was a conversation I had with someone last week. This gentleman has a company where 75% of his employees are women. And he said he noticed something that disturbs him. These women work hard, and in fact, there's a reason why most of his staff are women in the first place. These guys work hard, they are contributing well to the bottom line. But he notices that they always put a cap on themselves, subconsciously. Now, a woman who is supposed to be acting in managerial capacity feels that she's qualified and she has produced the results all right, but she feels that she's lacking somehow because she's not doing certain things on the home front, because she's trying to advance her career. Like we will say in Nigeria, oh, wrong now, because you're not supposed to dial back your own potential because of some certain expectations. The other week when we started this conversation, there was a very important point made about having a partner who is on the same page as you, and what happens if for some reason the partner now changes their own page and goes on another page. Now, bringing it back to this particular point, you would say that you have a woman and you have a man doing the same function, right? Producing the same results. Somewhere along the line, and this is just natural, somewhere along the line, they both get married. Guess who is going to have to take a break so that they can give birth to children? And then that is now seen as some sort of disruption. So at the end of the day, you find out that in performing the two roles, you have sort of placed a subconscious limitation on the woman, telling her that, yes, you can do this, you also need to do this, but this is going to be affected. Now, what this employer, this person I was talking to, said about his female staff is, he's not comfortable with the fact that they accept that reality and run with it. He has seen other women in other places where these women actively challenge these things. So what do I mean? We all know that it is possible, especially now in this pandemic and working from home and all that. Even when you're taking your maternity breaks, there are one or two things that you can still do to stay abreast of your career. The pressure is more on the woman because physically it's an expectation. She has to work on looking after children and all that. But we all know that it's not a one-sided thing, or rather, let me put it this way, it shouldn't be a one-sided thing. So what this gentleman was telling me is that he expects that these people would actually be curious about that. I asked him why, or how do you think someone can address something that has been subconsciously ingrained into you, you know, right from when we were growing up. And this happened to me, and possibly most of the women in this conversation can relate to this. They've told you as a woman, you're expected to do ABC. It differs depending on the culture and the context, or your religion or whatever. But basically, the bottom line is you have a different set of expectations as a woman, which should not be in terms of career. Career is supposed to be something of the intellect. And we all know everybody is at par intellectually. We are created to do certain things intellectually. Everyone has that capacity. There are other things on a physical level that differ, but that's not the scope of this discussion. I'll stay with the fact that intellectually we are all at par. So bringing it back to today's topic, we ask ourselves the question, how then do we reorient this subconscious programming that women have been given? How then do we tell women that, look, nothing is really stopping you except what is in your head? And it was interesting listening to this man because he's had a company for close to 20 years. So at the very worst, you will know that he has a lot of experience when it comes to these things. And he says he really wishes that the turnover with women was lower because he finds them to be more efficient in terms of giving outputs to the company. But after a while, maybe 5-6 years, the woman comes and says, oh, she needs to, dial things back a bit so that she can look after her children. And he always asks them a question. what about your partner? Have you settled down and, had this discussion with your partner? Now, don't get it wrong. It's not like he comes into their personal affairs uninvited, because the person I'm talking about, like I said, apart from being an employer, is also a close associate of mine. So what he says is that when this conversation starts, usually it is the women themselves that sort of open up as regards the reasons why they feel they should step back. Now, don't you feel you can contribute the same things you're contributing, even if it is at a reduced level? Yes, we understand that the limitations are there. We understand that, you have to, obviously someone who is a nursing mother, you don't want her to be coming into an office immediately after childbirth, right? But as she's there at home, she's doing stuff and she's still contributing to the company's bottom line. This is just an example based on, an employee's journey. It's different for different professional fields.
Okay.
The subconscious programming, yes.
Permit me to ask a question. If I understand what you're saying clearly now, what you have been able to establish is that the culture and environment plays a large role in the on the mindset of the average Nigerian woman. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it does. It does.
All right,
and we are all susceptible to this. It definitely does.
All right, go ahead. We'll come back to that.
Does. Okay. So just to, go back to the point, what we're saying is others have addressed the perspective of, coming from having support and creating that environment where it is well communicated what the expectations are. The angle I'm coming from too is also having it settled within yourself as a woman that this is what you want to achieve. Nothing really is stopping you. The first time we had the conversation, someone made a comment that was I took that comment home actually, and what she said was that even if your partner changes their mind that, oh, they are not giving you the support, the fact that you have told yourself that you are capable of achieving this thing is all that matters. Yes, it may be a bit difficult, or it may be a bit harder if you don't have that support, but it's not impossible. So to wrap up this point, what I would just say is that in terms of, I know the scope of this conversation is not how to overcome the subconscious programming, but it's just be aware of it and then start to look at ways to address this kind of thing. It's like a computer program that runs in the background. You hardly notice it's there, but by the time it stops working and your computer starts to freeze, you start to notice that, so is this thing that is causing the issue? That's just what it is. It's a background program that needs to be disrupted, that needs to be reconfigured or recalibrated. And if that is done, it would address the issue that this gentleman associate of mine was saying, that you know what, you need to be at par with your male peers as regards these expectations. They don't have those problems. But guess what? In the standard setting, and I'm saying standard now, I'm using the word very loosely, in the standard setting, two people are responsible for the disruption that brings about children, not one person. So society as a whole needs to come together and say, okay,
hello?
How do we make this work outside? Create an avenue where both people assume responsibility subconsciously. Don't, as a woman, say to yourself, oh, I have to step back, dial this back and do this because it is going to disrupt this thing. There was a study that was done. I'll just wrap up with this comment. Okay. There was a study that was done about 3 years ago, and it was a very interesting study. So what they did was they took working women and they took women who stay-at-home moms. The study was done somewhere in Europe, I think, and we know that Europe is very good when it comes to work-life balance and quality of life and all that. So it was a, in quotes, good place to do that study. And see what they did. They said, okay, the children of career women versus the children of stay-at-home mothers. Which children after 5 to 10 years had the, should we say, the more well-rounded development cycle? Yeah. Now, when I say 3 years ago, the results were published. This test was carried out over a period of about a decade. So it was some university study. I'll get the name of the school that did that study. And what they said was, the expectation at the beginning was, the premise was, if you spend more time with your children, you're going to have more well-rounded individuals and all that. But guess what happened? They did this study. And guess what? Both were actually at par.
Wow.
None was significantly better than the other. So this was like, I think, one of those Scandinavian countries. And we all know Scandinavian countries, when it comes to quality of life, those guys don't joke with anybody.
True.
So what are we saying? Nothing is stopping you. All those things that you think, oh, my children will be better off if I'm, closer to them, and then I'm limiting myself. All these things can be managed. It is possible. Women are multitaskers, but so are men. So let's not put it on one side and say, okay, you are the woman, you are the mother, you are nurturing, and then there's less responsibility on the part of the man. Whichever path you decide is your path to fulfillment in life, you need to address the subconscious program that says you cannot achieve this thing. So that's where I'll wrap it up for now.
All right.
Thank
you very much, Lola. I think questions are coming in gradually. Lola, I hear you clearly. I think that's a conversation we'll have for another day. Culture and environment, two powerful factors that affect life. Now, culture and environment are powerful factors. It's been proven that 50% of who you become is basically determined by your environment. 50% of who you become, your environment has a major impact on who you become. Yes, your environment has a major impact on who you become. Now, we're going to take it further. Let's hear from Hope. I'm coming to you. I have Hope on the call. I have Faith, and I also have Farida. So I'll take Faith, I'll take Hope, then I'll take Farida, then we'll go into questions. So let's be ready to answer questions. So Faith, let's hear from you.
Okay, everyone.
David.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thanks for having me, and I want to appreciate all the previous speakers. Building on the existing protocol, I would like to say when you're talking about when both partners are ambitious, I won't dwell too much on that. Like both speakers have said, if you see it as teamwork, as a team, you support each other. Like the Bible says, one put to flight 1,000 and 2 10,000. So if there's an understanding by both partners, I think it will work. I think sometimes part of the problem is as women, somebody was asking in a home, a man has 5,000 and the woman has 75,000. How much does the family have? And somebody said 5,000 because the woman's money is our own money. But if we take that mindset out of ourselves as women and contribute to the family, some women make a lot of money and they still want to buy Maggie, they ask their husbands. It becomes a problem. If you're actively supporting the home, I think it becomes easier for the man to support your ambition and everything, even though there are some cases where no matter what you do, he doesn't support. Of course, like you said, we live in a patriarchal society where some people feel that they're in charge and they control everything. But I think people are beginning to learn, mindsets are changing gradually, even though there's still a lot of work to be done. Then on the other aspect, living with a passively abusive spouse, I was telling Pastor Jonah that why passively, because I feel that abuse is abuse. I don't think there's anything passive about abuse. Yeah, even though they say, okay, because it's emotional, it's not like physical abuse. So I would say, when you look at abuse, I was reading about emotional abuse, and say, if after interacting with somebody, you feel depressed, you feel frustrated, you feel wounded, you feel like you're not good enough, you're inadequate, then you're probably in an emotionally abusive relationship, which goes hand in hand with verbal abuse. So what do you do in that kind of situation? First of all, you need to realize that you're being abused. knowing that there's a problem is the beginning of finding a solution. And then you need to stop making excuses for them and trying to pacify them. Because an abusive person, the more you try to reason with them, the more they want to keep abusing you. You know, the more you give them the opportunity to abuse you further. And then another thing I would say is that don't even attempt to argue with an abusive person, because they will find a way to still bring you back to your starting point where you are the problem. You know, they will find a way to end up blaming you still. Most times you can't make a headway. Yeah, we know a lot of us, we've talked about communication. But sometimes when you're dealing with an abusive person, no matter how you communicate, I'm talking from experience. Even, okay, like the first speaker said, don't maybe later, after the whole scenario, talk to the person. Sometimes they will still find, after you've talked and talked, I've had the opportunity to sit down with somebody, talk for hours. And then after everything, the person say, you know, you are the problem. You are too sensitive. You are too emotional. You are this, that, you know. But most times, having those heart-to-heart talks do not really work with an abusive person. But one thing I know is when you set, you need to, somebody said you need to become selfish. You need to make yourself a priority. Because what an abusive person does is destroy your self-esteem and your mental health. You know, you start feeling inadequate. You start feeling like there's something wrong with you. No matter what other people around you are seeing about you, you know, the person makes you feel like, in fact, you are privileged to have them in your life. You are lucky. You are the lucky one. You know? So you need to make yourself a priority. Start taking care of yourself. You know, somebody said, the previous speaker was talking about, okay, you know the way you were before this person. You know, try and bring yourself back to that point where you start believing in yourself again. And then set boundaries. Let the person know that if you keep treating me like this, you know, like somebody said, I would leave you. You know, let the person know that you're not afraid to leave. You know, one thing, I know that most of us do not want to hear this, you know, especially as Christians. We're married for life and all that. Especially when the abuse is in a Christian home, the person most times takes advantage of this and says, after all, for better, for worse, the death was past. You're not going anywhere. But when you make the person realize that if you continue doing this, one day you're going to look for me and you will not find me. You know, somehow it could make them sit up. And then don't even try to argue with them. And when they start being abusive, and just leave that place, leave the room. And then if it's possible, take a break. You know, somebody said, you could, I know about some people like somebody who's in an abusive relationship, just like, okay, I want to study somewhere. Maybe it may not be for too long. Take a break for your mental health, for your own sanity, because sometimes we hear about these days, a lot of people just dropping dead. You know, there's so much stress, especially on women. You need to take care of yourself. You need to protect your mental health. You need to protect your sanity. So stop making excuses. Stop trying to change the person. That's another point. You cannot change an abusive person. The only person who can do that is the Holy Spirit. It is not your job. And then I would round up by saying, For those who are still single, sometimes we see some of these signs as single people. We're like, oh, he's a nice person, he will change and all that. And then vice versa too, even as guys, you could be at the receiving end, even though we're talking about women this time, So it's good to really look before you leap. But if you're already in it, set boundaries, take care of yourself. Do things that make you happy. Do things, try to learn a skill, try to do things that would improve your life and make you feel good about yourself. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Faith, for that. I think that came from a different angle from what we've been hearing. Initially, we were talking about if you experience passive emotional abuse, what you need to do is to communicate. In fact, first and foremost, nip it in the bud, identify it. She has come with the opinion of knowing that it is a problem, knowing this is a problem. Do not protect it, do not cover it, identify it as a problem, then protect yourself, set boundaries, because it could affect your mental health. We talked about that a lot in part 1, and you just need to do what makes you happy. Now, in doing what makes you happy, in finding purpose for yourself when you're in such situation, it creates some form of joy for you and some form of excitement. You just know that, yes, there is more to life than what you might be experiencing. Now, it's a deep topic. There's a whole lot to say about it, but I don't want to go that route this evening. Let's just let's hear from the last 2 speakers, then we'll take questions. Then I'll come back to certain comments that have been made while the conversation was going on. So quickly, I would just like to hear from Hope. Hope, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, thank you very much. Good evening.
Yeah. I've listened to what everybody has to say, and at this point, I would say that you really can't advise someone unless you have been in the shoes. Once upon a time, I was of that opinion, when I had friends who were in relationships when I was still single, and they come to me and like, my fiancé, my husband, my this, my that. And I was like, how can you take such rubbish, I was always, no, it's equality. This is which century are we now? And I was always of that mind until it got to my turn. And I realized it takes the grace of God. Because you see, when you've been railroaded, like you have a vision, you have a mind that at this certain stage in time, this is where I want to be, and then you are setting milestones for yourself. And if you're unlucky, like me, before you even begin, they're already clipping your wings. What will you do? What will be your reason for leaving the marriage? Oh, he doesn't want me to work, he doesn't want me to have a career. No, nobody will even believe you, not even your dad. So it's there was a South African kini I watched on DSTV one time, and the lady said it takes silent strength for a woman to succeed. And that's one thing I've always held on to. Let me give you a story. The whole of Nigeria knows God is good mottos. Okay, yeah. But for those that grew up in Benin, they know their story a little bit more. I don't know the family. I can't even identify any of them, but I've always known about them. Those days in Benin, you don't say you are traveling and you want to take God is good. You are the poorest of the poor for you to take God is good. For crying out loud. If you don't have money, you go to Omba line. If you have money, you take Etegbe or Iyare, But when the man was kidnapped, at that point, I don't even think they had up to 10 vehicles. How he was even able to buy that land, I don't know. But those are the people that were hustling. When you want to take God is good motors, you hide it from everybody. You don't want to be seen. When you get to Ore, you don't want to be seen that you're coming down from that bus. You are not an it person, But the whole drama that happened around the time the man was kidnapped, and then he died, and then the whole wife story and the eventual vindication of the man made everybody in Edo State focused on that family. And the woman, even though she was still mourning, she took advantage of the situation. And within 3 years, God is Good became a household name. Now, my own deduction is, what I tell people is, I don't think this man ever allowed this woman to advise him concerning this business, because if he did, his business would have been a household name even before he died. Most people in Benin didn't even know God is Good existed. But now, everybody in Nigeria knows about God is Good motors. The woman sat at the helm of affairs and her children backed her up. And today, in about, is it up to 10 years? It should be 10, 12 years now. They've turned that business upside down. Everybody wants to be associated with them. Now, every other park in Nigeria, they get the remnants from God is Good. They started online banking, they started so many things. So the potential, that's not to say that there are no women that are destiny killers. Yes, there are some women that are actually destiny killers. Anything they touch will just die fast. But there are a lot of women with potentials and they get married to people. You know, marriage for a woman is a gamble. You are seeing the outside package. He's tall, he's dark, he's handsome. Maybe he has nothing in his pocket. And you're like, okay, let's see how it will go. But the gamble starts when you finally enter the man's house. You don't know what you're going to see there. You don't know the character is going to exhibit. Most men continue that pretense until the first child arrives, and then you see the devil you never saw. Most women that resign from their jobs, they do so when the kids start arriving. It's not like they can't handle their work and the housework. But you see, the stress is too much. I have one, and when I'm shouting today, you will think I have 10. There's a portion of my house, I have left it perpetually, it's always unkept because I'm tired of cleaning up. It doesn't mean that I'm a lazy person. It doesn't mean that I'm a dirty person. But it just means that sometimes I have my limits too. Now, the man, when the kids start coming in, that's when they start clipping a lot of women's rings. Who will take care of the children? I told you I don't want house help. I told you I don't want relations. I told you I don't want this. And by the time I told you, and some of them, they're not even shouting. They're just gently telling you. But that gently telling you, they're killing you already. Now, a woman that had a projection, she wants to be so and so place by age 40. Now, by age 39, she's already a housewife. How will she go on social media to celebrate her birthday? When people are posting, I have my PhD, I'm a doctor now, I'm a this, I'm a that. And what will she post? I'm a housewife. And you see, such things, that's how depression sets in. Because she looks around and she that was on top suddenly becomes at the bottom. And somebody was saying, communicate and sit down and talk with. Is it not when the man gives you the opportunity to sit down that you'll be able to sit down and talk? Some women, they can't sit down in the same sitting room with their husband. No, they're not born there. You can't dare it. And this is the same man that was kneeling down and begging you when you were cutting. I've seen a lot of people, I've seen a lot of marriages that I thank God that my own is even trying. You see some women and you wonder how they're able to cope. So it's not a question of sitting down, having a positive mindset. Where will the positive mindset start from? Where will the positive mindset start from when you don't even believe in yourself? When a man continually tells you, I have a friend, the man will tell the children, not even her, the man will tell the children, look, I pity you people, oh, when I leave your mother, you people will suffer because she cannot even take care of you, not to talk of pay your school fees. And at that point, the children's mind already started changing. They were like, they can't afford to offend their dad because they see their mom, she's always tired, she's always stressed. She works from morning till night, no matter what she does, the man doesn't have a kind word to say. And on top of that, when they had a little misunderstanding, like, oh, she needs a break, she went to her parents' house, the man brought in his girlfriend from outside into her home, and she could not talk. So it's when the man gives you the opportunity to talk that you can even say, I want to sit down, let's discuss. Discuss which future. So a lot of women, you see them, they are just functioning, they are just existing, they are not living. They are wondering what went wrong. Because even in marriage, that was not the plan. They had a plan during courtship. They drew plans, they sat down, they planned their life together, you know. But suddenly marriage comes in. You see some women, they hate a particular child. It's not that the child did anything wrong, but they see that child as the turning point of their life. It is when this child came that everything went wrong. And no matter what, that they take the anger on that child because they cannot beat the father. So they take it out on that particular child. So it's not a matter of saying you sit down and talk. How do you sit down and talk to the one that does? I had a friend, a pastor friend. He was dating this girl, and this girl's father was a big-time politician, not just politician, sef. He was a senator at the House of Rep. And the guy will open his mouth, a guy, nobody even knows them in their area, not to talk of in the States. And then he open his mouth and tell this girl, I'm just managing you, I'm just managing you. And then one day the girl's father got to hear that this is what the guy, I'm like, and you are still in this relationship. And she said, Daddy, what will I do? The man said, okay, the guy has already done some damage. Let me see if I can undo it. And he sent the girl to UK to study. And then she made some friends and saw that, okay, the way the white people think is different from the way we are thinking. And the guy will still call her from here. I'm just managing you. And this guy is a pastor. When the management became too much, the girl's father had to tell the guy, please leave my daughter alone. It's not by force. Since you are managing her, look for the one you cannot manage. So imagine if that man had not stepped in, or if he didn't have the means to be able to take that girl out of that toxic relationship. If they had married, what would have happened? So not all ladies are so lucky. Some gambled. They entered a relationship that were toxic from the beginning, and the man turned out to be a saint. And some saw saints enter thinking they will finally have rest of mind, and they saw hell on earth. So you see these women that are walking around, don't go and look for their trouble anyhow. Some you push them, they'll just fall and faint because the load they are carrying is too much for them. They didn't envisage this. I've seen a master's degree holder that the husband does not even allow her to sell provisions. And the man will still tell her, you are nothing. That is it. So it's when you are able to sit down to talk, that's when you can even tell the man that I'm not feeling appreciated. That is it. Because if you are able to sit down to tell your husband, I'm not feeling appreciated, and then he looks you up and down and opens his mouth to say, in what way? Then you are married to a good man. Because the Nigerian men I am seeing these days, the stories I am hearing, they don't have the time. A man that is marrying a career woman from the beginning of the marriage, in fact, from the church, his friends, his family, they're already telling him, look, you know your wife is working in the bank. You have to let her know from the beginning who is the head of the house. And then when the woman wants to now open her mouth to say, baby, see, this thing you are doing, I'm not feeling comfortable. I'm walking to her, blah, blah. And the next thing she hears is a slap. That is how it is these days. So it's not that the women do not know that they can communicate with their husbands to express their displeasure. It's just that, do they even have that opportunity? That is the thing.
All right. Hope you've actually raised a lot of questions from your contribution. But before I go into that, I'm going to ask Keyo to say one or two things based on what you said, because I saw your comment in the chat box. And we also need to answer the question from, is it Terry? I saw a question from Terry about narcissists. Let's quickly give Farida the opportunity to speak. Farida, are you still there? Okay, I think she's off the call already. All right, great. Before Faye, I'd like you to respond to some of the things Hope said, right? You talked about, yeah, but before,
Okay, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, thank you very much for the other speakers. I think we did it justice, to be honest. Thank you very much, Hope. for your conversation and your discussion. That was really good, actually. I remember the speaker before you said something about start taking care of yourself. I think I rushed it at the end where I said set boundaries. The truth is, I mean, this is me now being personal. I got married at 31, and from the age of 19, my parents started getting married, and my mom got really worried, and she used to just say, "Caddy, caddy." And I know me. I'm very opinionated. I'm very career oriented, and I know what I want as I want. And I used to tell my mom, I know you don't like divorce. I know you're going about this, but if you push me and I marry the wrong person, I'll be the first person that gets divorced. So the point I'm trying to make is, I think no one should endure abuse. You always have to set boundaries and execute them. The speaker before Hope said, start taking care of yourself. Start taking care of yourself. Let the person know that you can do. As much as I don't encourage divorce, but sometimes I do say you need to separate and see what can happen. You need to take a breather from each other and see what happens. But you definitely need to set boundaries. And I spoke about the wages system. Is it worth sacrificing the marriage and the family for the career? But that still goes back to, do you actually have a marriage to salvage? If
Okay,
you're
so
married to an
sorry to
abuser,
cut you
that
short.
is,
Sorry to cut. I need to come in there. When you say set boundaries, I think I need it to be a little bit clear. Can you make it a little bit more practical? You say set boundaries. Does it mean that when he's coming at me with such words, or what do I what do we do? So I think you need to be a bit
okay, great.
yeah.
Okay, I'll give you an example. Okay,
Great.
let's talk about the silent abuser.
Okay.
And like, I don't know how to do things without being very practical.
Okay.
Okay, when I got married, I remember just the very first time I knew my husband actually could be, one of those people that want to silently push you. I think we're lying on the bed and we're just selecting beans. And I said something, I was like, babe, can you do something for me? And I mean, it was just the two of us in the room. I think it was even like our first week of marriage. And he heard me and he didn't do it. So I didn't say anything. Then I think later on in the day, he said, Teddy, why didn't you? I said, but I asked you to pick that for me and you didn't. And he went, you should have asked. And I said, no, you don't pay me to talk to you twice about the same thing. So that for me was a boundary. And I remember just telling my younger sister that, and she's like, oh my God, my husband does that. And I said, no, you don't have to. I made up my mind, babe, if I'm in the room and I ask you for something and you can hear me, I'm not going to ask you twice, because it is a control thing. And he got the message immediately that Caddy is not going to be asking you and begging you to do something that you know. So my husband knows if I ask him for something I really need it, and if he's in his place to do it, let him do it. If he's in his place to do it and he doesn't do it, I'm not going to beg him for it. That's just an example of setting a boundary for this person to know that if he's not going to do it, you can always do it. That's just a very simple boundary of, listen, I am not going to be begging you over and over about this thing, because the thing with abuse is one way or the other, we also do it. And it is a control thing. You might abuse someone without actually knowing.
Sure.
I know the lady said, sit down and talk. Isn't not when he gives you time to sit down and talk. I don't think he really needs to give you time to sit down and talk. Like, I get the one that, you're under him, you're being submissive. The Bible says that. But it comes to a point where this third speaker said, you have to look after yourself. I don't know, hope we were friends with the same person, because like the whole senator child, but mine was actually the yours. That was actually a very close friend of mine. The guy was also a pastor, and the guy used to abuse her so badly, you know. And the things also, people that get abused, they don't say it. And I was a friend and I didn't even know this until it all got blown up. So you have to accept the fact that, listen, there are some things you cannot take. There are some things you cannot. It is a control thing. And you also have to be honest to yourself that you're not also abusing other people. I know a lady that gets really abused, really, really abused by her husband. And the slightest chance she has, she does the same thing to the next person. So, like I said, set boundaries, know what you can take and what you can't take, and what their repercussions if you cannot take it. Let the person know that, marriage is not a do or die thing. it is not a do or die. You cannot lose your self-worth because you're in a marriage. You cannot allow that happen. If it comes to a point that, you know, you can't hack it anymore, take a break. It's very good to take a break because you're not doing anyone a favor if you're bitter, your kids are bitter, the whole situation is bitter. I'm the third speaker said something which I'd ask a question. I said, does that mean the children of career women do badly that the children of non-career women? And she answered that question, she said, no, you know, with the study, she said they were par. So it doesn't really take anything for you to go after your goals. But, you know, being constant communication with the person that you're married to and let them know that you can also do without them just as they can do without you. Marriage is important. Marriage is important, but it's not more important to one person than the other. It's really not. So thank you, General.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for that. Now, before I don't know if we have more questions coming in. However, there's a question here which I would like to address, and it says, how does one deal with a narcissist partner? And the communication is so important in any relationship, but narcissists are a different kind of group. And if you're wondering who a narcissist is, or narcissistic person it's more like a personality disorder where it's a mental condition in which people have an inflated sense of their own importance. You feel more important than every other person, a deep need for excessive attention and admiration, troubled relationships, and a lack of empathy for others. So you see yourself superior above every other person. You don't give a damn about those that are around you and all that. So how can one deal with such a partner? I just want any of our panelists to talk about that. Anyone? Or if you're on this call and you want to make a contribution, just indicate by raising up your hand. I also like a man to speak to the things we've heard. Yes, I know we have a lot of men here. I also like a man to respond at the end, to just make one or two contributions. So quickly, I just want us to answer that question. How do you deal with a narcissistic partner? Anyone, please.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, if I take your definition, says someone that has an elevated view of himself.
Yeah.
For me, if you find that you are married to such a person, I think to deal with that kind of person, it will take patience. It will take a lot of patience, and it will take flattery to get what you want. You may have to flatter him, so much to move attention from you. And then you may have to start doing some things behind him, but in such a way that he will never find out, because that means when he finds out that you are doing something that he did not give express approval, I don't think the outcome is going to be good. So such a person, you flatter them anyhow, and then you have to be patient. There's this adage there when I was growing up, like a Yoruba man, when he goes to the toilet, the wife has to sit close by and be telling him sorry, well done, and all that. I think that's how you deal with such a person. Otherwise, life is going to be really bitter for you.
All right. Thank you very much. Any other opinion?
Yes.
Okay, Lola.
Okay. So in terms of dealing with narcissists, there are two ways to look at it. The first one is to identify a narcissist right from the get-go. Now, this might not be as straightforward as that, because I saw somewhere on the chat, I think someone said, it's important to be able to communicate with them and all that. But the truth of the matter is, a narcissist essentially would not change. Someone said earlier that maybe it's only the Holy Spirit that can change a person. But the truth of the matter is, if you find yourself with a narcissist, you have to sort of shift the focus now from them to yourself. You have to find a support system outside of them, because they will never be your support system. A narcissist sees the world as revolving around them. There is nothing more important to the narcissist than the narcissist themselves, whether it's your spouse or your children or whatever. So the important thing is to understand that you have to create that safe space for yourself mentally. And how do you do that? If you're in a marriage, for example, you have to start doing certain things outside of them. I know this goes against the conventional, oh, you have to do stuff together. But if you don't do that, if you don't create that safe space for yourself, you might end up destroying yourself, right? Trying to save face. Why I'm saying this so passionately is because I know people personally who have married narcissists until tomorrow are still suffering the effects even after leaving the marriage. So it is important to understand that you have to create that safe space. And what do I mean by the safe space? So you have things you want to achieve in life. Find like minds. For a lot of women, this is like fellow women. It could be women in a circle. It could be relatives or even non-relatives, but just find that support system. The set of people that will be there for you no matter what. There will be such people. You see, what narcissists do is they sort of isolate you. The first thing they do is they try to isolate you from your support system. You have to resist that at all costs. Ensure that you are not isolated. Ensure that you always have access to your support system. I cannot stress this enough. We've listened to so many cases of things that have degenerated as a result of people refusing to do that. So you need to create that support system, create that space rather, and then also ensure that you do not lose access to a support system. Because guess what? A narcissist will definitely push back. When they see you are trying to emancipate yourself from their manipulations, from their schemes, they will push back and try to drive you deeper into that isolation, you know? So they are the ones who tell you, oh, I don't want you to walk outside. I don't want other men to look at you. You know, all those silly excuses that they give. You have to push back at all costs. What some people have done, which I've seen, is that yes, the previous speaker just said it. You manage their expectations, but that doesn't mean you have to start tiptoeing around them. You have to tell them point blank, this, I'm not going to take this from you. I'm not going to take A, B, C from you. Oh, the guy will threaten you. Oh, I'm not going to take care of you anymore financially. I'm going to withdraw this, withdraw that, withdraw this.
I think sorry, that's almost like as well as setting boundaries. Am I correct?
Yes, that's setting boundaries.
Okay, great.
But beyond setting boundaries, it's also creating your own safe space.
Okay.
Because I'm going to say an unfortunate truth now. This is an unfortunate truth. If you are married to a narcissist, chances are 75 to 25 that you are better off leaving that marriage. It's unfortunate, but that's just the fact. No one says, oh, go ahead and start, get a divorce and all that. But trust me, in the long run, staying with a narcissist will destroy a person. So it is better to work towards being independent. We are not saying, oh, rush and start serving divorce papers. No, but understand that it is a possible outcome and work towards having a life of your own outside them, because they will never be your support system, no matter what. They won't. And I know how isolating it can be to be married to someone and there's no emotional support whatsoever. It is one of the worst experiences that anyone can go through in this life. So that's an unfortunate truth, but it's something that anybody who is dealing with a narcissist has to expect. The final point I would say to that is, in addition to setting boundaries, you also need to shift the focus away from them. You are always thinking about them, how they will react, what they will do, how will this guy take this thing, this and that. Shift the focus to yourself, because guess what? When a narcissist is not getting the attention they desire, it will start giving them cause for thought. What some people do, they would now try to manipulate and say, oh, you're looking at other people outside. They are the ones who say, they come up with all these things. Trust me, they are not being insecure. It is rather a way of trying to control the person's mind, trying to be the center of attention. So starve them of that attention. It's very possible. I have a close friend who was in that kind of marriage, and what she did and what she still does till today, because she's still in that marriage, is they are in the house together, but at the end of the day, the worst is good morning, good night, and that is just it. Everybody goes their separate ways. Yes, it's not a healthy environment, but she has to maintain her sanity because she has chosen to remain in that marriage. So that's what I would say about that. Thanks.
Wow. Thank you very much. Okay, I have two persons indicating that they want to speak. I'm going to take Gospel first, but before I take Gospel before I take gospel and I take faith, I just want to reiterate some certain things that have been said today. One is that we've been able to identify two factors from what Lola said that affects women. She said culture and environment, that is subconscious. Somehow the our culture and our environment somehow places a cap on women, and subconsciously they just act in that light. And well, I'm trying to see how we can take that discussion or that conversation further. But truth be told, right, from what you have said, it's not just the woman. While it may be more on the woman from the angle you are coming from, I think it affects everyone. Culture places a demand on everyone. The environment also places a demand on everyone. And it goes a long way to determine how far you go in life if you do not break out of that mold. I think that was part of what, if you've not watched, if you are here, the links for repositioning for 2021, I made mention of some things around that. I just need you to go back and watch that. You can go to our YouTube channel and watch that. I think we'll have to take that conversation further, because it actually limits how far you can go in life. We also talked about setting boundaries. That has come out clearly over and over again in terms of in light of building your sanity, maintaining your mental health. We've talked about you being able to know the reason, the value of your career to the system that you're building at home. What value is it bringing on board? Well, I just had to do that so that we'll have a direction in this conversation we're having this evening, and as we gradually bring it to a close. Now, I'm going to take gospel. Let's hear your thoughts. I'm going to take faith thereafter. Now, if you have any question, this is the time to drop your question while we bring our thoughts together and bring this session to a close. Now, gospel, let's hear from you. Thank you.
Hi, Jonah. Can you hear me? Good evening. Good evening, everyone.
I can hear you. Thank you for speaking up, gospel. I actually needed a man to speak.
Yes. For a narcissist,
yeah,
it's interesting because it's a situation I've found myself in before.
Okay.
And then it's not a situation where it's coming from a man. It's actually a situation where it's coming from a woman. That's a situation where it's coming from a wife. So, but how did I conquer this? Because it's no longer an issue and it's no longer there.
Okay.
Now, I did 3 basic things I'm going to share with us. The first one is I wasn't really happy that I was a victim of this from the onset. So what I did was I looked for those times when she's absolutely happy, in a very good mood. And then I write. I don't speak. I just drop notes. Very polite and in a very loving manner. I communicate my concerns. And at those times, I observe she gets calm, she gets quiet. She looks at it and she's quiet, meaning she's contemplating, she's considering what I just wrote down at those very good times. And then number 2, I try to say it, but at times when I know she's also in a very good mood, I don't try to complain, but I just say, I just wish this wasn't happening. I just wish, things would be like this. Then the third thing I consider to be the most powerful was I always prayed. I always prayed for her. And one thing I've discovered in marriage is more spiritual than it is physical. Okay, the truth is we all have issues, either behavioral, what has happened as a result of our environment and so many things. But my brother, as we speak, it's bygone. When I mean bygone, I wonder sometimes, like, was this there before? This is an old story. And how did it change? For me, through prayers, because I prayed a lot. And I still believe if you're married to someone, you should be able to make out time to pray for this person, because the both of you are one. So if something is wrong with him, something is wrong with me. If something is wrong with her, something is wrong with me. So for me, I did a lot of praying. I was always praying, and then I saw it change. And then at a point in time, I was wondering, did I go through this? Was this a problem before? So for me, it's about being very, very tactical about it and finding the right time to communicate. For me, I did more of my communication in writing, okay? And then prayer. I prayed for my wife a lot. And that's why I still tell someone that if you give me a demon as a wife, I through prayer, I can turn her to an angel, because all I'm going to do is pray for her every day. And pray for her passionately, because I don't have a choice. I'm not going to opt out. For me, opting out is not an option. So the only thing I can do is pray and pray and pray and pray for her. Then I've seen prayer change demons into angels. It always works if we are patient and we are willing to pray for that person. For me, that's how it worked. But it was like something I went through and I had to deal with it. And not there. I can't even believe this same person had that kind of tendency before. It's not there. So I can tell this to a friend or someone that's close to me, that this was what worked for me. Maybe you can try it. It will work for you too.
All right.
Thank you, Jonah.
Thank you very much. Faith, do you want to say anything? So if you have any comment or question, I think this is the right time to quickly raise your hand or drop your question in the chat box so that we can deal with it, because I'd like to bring this to a close in the next, say, 10 minutes. We've been over an hour on this session. All right, Faith, quickly, can we hear from you?
I already wrote that in the comment section. That basically it's okay to seek professional help when you are in such situations, because some women have gone mad, as in literally. I know about some. You know, being in an abusive relationship, especially when it's emotional abuse, is even worse than physical abuse. So I know sometimes you talk to some people and they tell your story, but then you can choose people you talk to or seek for professional help, because you need it for your sanity.
Sure.
Basically. Thank you.
All right. So I've also noticed and observed that if you're going through stuff and you find time to speak to somebody about it, right? Speak to the right person about it, it kind of lifts the burden off your shoulders. Speaking to the right person really does help. Okay, Adebayo Oduringe, you said you want to share. So let's hear from you quickly. Adebayo, are you there?
Yeah, good evening.
All right, good evening.
Okay. Well, what I wanted to share is I think the type of environment we find ourselves in, the type of people we find around us also impacts in one's judgment towards marriage. Like, I'll give an example for myself. About 5 years back, I started noticing that everyone around me was having a bad marriage. Like, everybody, all the married people I know was complaining about something. In fact, I had a very close friend that she always called me. She calls me and we talk at length, and I'll be like, why don't you talk to your husband? And say, we don't talk. We just greet each other in the morning and in the night. And I'll be like, wow, why are you still in that marriage? Like, what's happening? She said she's basically just quitting because he's providing school fees and all that. Assuming she had something doing, she would not be there. So then, the cases are a lot around me back then. Then it started affecting my own perception towards marriage. Like, why all this? Is it like marriages don't last again? Is it like people don't get happy in marriages? Mostly from the female side, though. I had a lot of females that are saying, if not for my child, I would have left. If not that we're married, if not that we have a child together. So it boils down to it made me question the whole point of marriage, right? So what I wanted to say is I feel the stories we hear, the way we see other marriages around us. Like me, I never met my dad and my mom together. Like I don't even know what it feels like to have a father and mother together. So
Are you there?
it's I don't know. So that's just what I want to share.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So to bring this to a close, I want to believe we've all said, okay, Yobosa, you still want to say something? Okay. Were you raising up your hand?
No, sorry, it was a mistake. It was a mistake.
Okay, all right, great. Okay, to bring this to a close, I'll just like to reiterate what every speaker has said and key points that we have taken. So we had the first speaker, Keyo. She talked about you having to know your purpose, right? What is driving your purpose, like the motive behind your purpose. If you're ambitious and you have an ambitious partner as well, okay, basically what she was saying was you need to sit down, communicate, be intentional, design your goals, talk about it. Who should go first, right? If these are the milestones I want to achieve in life, when should I take this step and when should you take the step? You just need to agree on what you need to do. I believe it's workable. We have a lot of success stories around us. People, Atinuke used the case of a bishop and the wife, Bishop Oyedepo and the wife. We have a lot of persons that are ambitious, that are successful in what they are doing. So I believe it is practicable. It can be done. It is achievable. However, we also have cases whereby perceptions are not being met when you think, okay, we're both ambitious, and when we go into the journey of marriage, a lot of things begins to happen. Now reality steps in, and you see one partner is not supportive and all that stuff, right? Now, however, despite whatever situation you find yourself, what we also agreed here tonight is that your mental health is key. You are very important to you, so you need to take care of yourself. Despite the situation where you find yourself, that is why we have talked about building a support system. If you find yourself in a relationship where there is no support, look for how to build a support system that will support you. It is very, very key, because sometimes when you are burdened with a lot of things and you don't have anybody to share with, genuine persons to share with, that will give you real advice, that would help you carry that burden. It could lead you, it will make you depreciate before your time. It will make you depreciate before your time. We've seen cases, right? We've seen people just go down the drain just because they don't have that support. So building a support system is key. If you're in a relationship where that support is not there, having real and genuine friends that you can talk to, that can carry you along, that can push you, right, is very, very important. Then we also talked about setting boundaries, right? Setting boundaries. We need to set boundaries. Elola talked about having breaking out of the subconscious. Now, there's the possibility of culture and environment affecting how far we go in life is key. That is a given, very, very profound point. Now, you need to deliberately break out of that subconscious and begin to achieve what you need to achieve in life. I've told myself that 2021 is the year of accomplishment, so I'm doing crazy things this year. Whether I achieve it or not, I'm just pushing, and I'm going to push until I get to where I'm going to. Now, we also had Yobosa talked about her experience where the partner might not really give you the opportunity to even speak. And I think if you need to, if you find yourself in that kind of situation, now I listened to a video within the week, the former CEO of PepsiCo, and she was narrating how the daughter made her feel bad for not always coming to school when they had an event. So what she did was she decided to call the school to ask how many parents were not there. So when the daughter comes to say, hey, mommy, you were not there, she said, okay, yes, I wasn't there. Mrs. A also was not there. Mrs. B was not there. Now, the whole point was she decided to build a mechanism on how to deal with issues. And for me, I think that was profound. When you find yourself, because no two situations are similar. When you find yourself in any situation, right, develop a mechanism on how to get out. You need to step back. Now, in safety, there's what we call step back 5 by 5. When you get onto a site, you step back, right? You take an overview of that site, right, before you engage. So if you find yourself in a messy situation, now, like I always say, talk is cheap, right? The practicality of what you've heard, carrying it into action is also very key. When you find yourself in a messy situation, now for you to be able to engage and break out of it, you need to step back. Because if you engage at that point in time when you're in a messy situation, you most likely will miss it. You need to step back, develop a mechanism before you engage, right? I think with these few points that I've been able to reiterate from what everybody have said, I want to say thank you very much for joining us on the Roundtable Talk 3.0 Part 2 of Morass of an Ambitious Woman. Now, please do us a favor, visit our YouTube channel and watch the previous videos we have there. I also have written a book, and it is called Dining with the Enemy. The link has just been dropped. You can click on that link and purchase that book. I think it's a powerful one and it will help. The next time we'll be seeing ourselves again on the Roundtable Talk will be most likely in a month's time. We'll be coming out with something very, very different, and I believe it will also be very engaging, right? I'm also considering that we might either want to begin to look at the men's angle, hopefully, or we could come up with something. If you have topics you want to suggest, right? Somebody saying a month. Well, it's actually once a month. It's too long. Okay, great. All right, let's see. We might work on it for that. We can do it in 2 weeks' time or in 3 weeks' time. But sometimes we also need a lot of people to come in, right? So we take some time to make it public, right? We'll work on that. We'll work on that. We can make it a little bit shorter. Thank you very much for that feedback, Atinuke. All right, but I promise you we'll be getting back to you very, very soon. And it's going to be a whole new topic. Right? So thank you everyone to Adebayo, Atinuke, Blessing, Cynthia, Iyobosa, Isa, Kabiru, Lola, to all our panelists that have joined us today, from those from Cameroon, Miss Pa, I saw, okay, I can't pronounce that name, Terry Koza, Butania, and all those that have joined us within the country, outside of the country. Pastor Bayo, I see you. Thank you very much. Pastor Bayo, I see you. I think I need to connect with you. Yes, I thank you. He's been consistent on this call. Thank you very much for joining us. I just want to say thank you to everyone. If we don't have your email, if you did not get any email from us, please just drop your email in the chat box. All right, so, from South Africa, Terry from South Africa, thank you very, very much. Thank you very much for joining, Terry from South Africa. Great to have you on the call. All right, I'm going to connect with you, Terry. I'm not sure we have your email. Please drop your email, Terry. Drop your email. We'll connect with you within the week. Now, if we don't have your email, kindly please drop your email so that we can send you messages directly to your mailbox. Thank you once again for joining the Roundtable Talk, and do have a splendid week. Thank you.